Love and Light Show special guest is Janelle Fraser, and I'm so excited to be talking to you guys and her about intimate communication and how we can all have deeply satisfying, amazing, intimate, connected relationships that we all deserve and would love to have, right? So I'm super excited for us to talk about why relationships fail, the missing ingredient, and really get deep into what that deeply intimate, satisfying, incredible relationship is that we're desiring to have, how we can create it, and definitely stay tuned to the end so we can get into those awesome experiences. We're going to go into 3 intimacy challenges that you guys can actually go home and do with your partner and create that intimate relationship like right now. And definitely feel free to share this out to anyone in your life that you know needs that deeply intimate relationship. Share it with your partner, tag it in the comments, whatever you want to do so that they can get this awesome message. And Janelle is really amazing and awesome. She's a personal transformation and intimacy expert who loves to encourage women to transform the relationships they have with themselves, their vulnerability, their partner, and their sexuality. And I'm so in love and excited about all of that. So thank you so much for joining us today, Janelle. How are you doing?
Did I cut out there?
Oh, yeah, you cut out, but you're right back. That's interesting.
Okay, awesome. I
How are
cut
you
out
doing?
because my mother is calling me.
Oh.
And it's on Do Not Disturb, but she's still showing up. So thank you. Thank you so much. And for anyone who knows my work at all, my family and friends are very much intertwined to my events and work. So it's just not a surprise that my mom's trying to get in on this.
She's like, I love this energy. Come right in.
She really does. So thank you so much. I'm pumped to have this conversation.
Awesome, me too. And this is the Love and Light Show. If you guys are not familiar with it, we go live usually on Mondays, but I've been feeling called to kind of change it. So we're going to play with different dates over the next month or so and see how that feels. And the Love and Light Show supports you guys in connecting with different light workers and healers and badass spiritual entrepreneurs. And you guys can really reach out to them and find your next best steps so that everyone can be connected with their ideal next best step person so that we can all literally know what our awesome healing journey and make that unique to ourselves. So we can all be that change that we want to see in the world for ourselves first and foremost, and do this work for ourselves and loving ourselves more and growing and deepening that connection with ourselves and the partners in our lives and our coworkers, and just ripple that awesome effect out into everyone else in the world. Yay! And I'm Laura McPhee. I'm a joyful goddess, a speaker, healer, and coach, and I love empowering women to get to their dream happy lives so that they can literally release and let go of the negative junk and subconscious belief systems that aren't serving them anymore, the ones that say that they're not good enough or pretty enough or whatever enough, and start really loving ourselves unconditionally and taking the time that we need to enjoy self-care and fill our cups up so we can serve from that overflow and be that change in our lives as well. So definitely say hi as you're popping on live. We're on the Be Live platform, so we can't see you as you pop in. You have to say hi, and definitely say hi on the replay. If you want to hashtag replay, you can do that. And I'm super excited to dive into this today with Janelle. So what is that deeply satisfying relationship?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation because there's not one. So what's deeply satisfying for me is not what's deeply satisfying for you or some of you who are watching. So to me, the deeply satisfying relationship is about getting clear about what it is you desire, because what satisfies your taste buds, so to speak, is going to be different than the people around you. So I'm a huge advocate for not creating relationships on default, not creating the relationship that your parents have or that all your friends have. Really creating your own rules, your own values, your own dynamics in between you. And so that's kind of the first step, is it's got to be your own. But the key part of that some people are like, oh yeah, my relationship's my own. A lot of people naturally say that, but it's got to be conscious. And what I mean by that is a deeply satisfying relationship. So this is the second piece, is it's your own, but it's a conscious relationship that it's evolving, growing. There's attention put on the relationship around your interaction, how you guys want to touch each other, feel around each other, things you want to do together, who you want to become in this life together.
Yes.
And that's like that's the piece that I obviously work on the most, but it is also the part that no one's doing.
Exactly. And I love that, because more people need to be living in conscious relationships and then parenting consciously and being just conscious in their everyday day-to-day life. So I love that you're doing that work.
Yeah, I think some of the most unconsciousness, I'll say, in our planet is happening in relationships. We are putting time, money, and energy into our health and fitness, into our businesses, into our kids' activities, and then we spend like thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, on weddings. And but then it's like we don't invest time, money, and energy on deepening that relationship so our kids can actually see a reflection of true love and intimacy and possibility, as well as we spend all that money on the wedding. But why are we not just as focused on investing just as heavily time, money, and energy on the relationship,
keeping them together and growing together,
relationship and what you want to experience? And so that's really the culture that I desire to shift.
I love that. So why do most relationships fail? Why do you feel that?
So I love this question because how will I say it? It is, failure is not, some people might have already kind of tuned out when you said failure, because they're like, well, we're not getting a divorce or we're not separating. That's the way that we think about failure in relationships, is if we're together or not. And those, really aren't the couples that I'm most here to serve. I'm here to serve the couples who have good relationships and they're good people, but there's not any intimacy, there's not any connection, there's not any spark, there's not any magic. So to me, I want to redefine failure for a minute before I talk about the ingredients, because failure to me is coexisting. Failure to me is not communicating well. Failure to me is being frustrated and irritated with each other, or feeling resistant towards each other and towards touch and intimacy. And so that type of failure is happening in every single relationship that I've ever seen. I can count, on one hand, the amount of relationships that I've experienced and seen that's not happening. And by it happening, it's not that it's happening, it's that it's the norm in the relationship. It's going to happen. But is it the norm? Is this what we've settled into? Is this, how we operate now? So to me, that's the failure in relationship. So with that being said, why I believe this is happening is, like I said earlier, we are focused on building a life together. We are focused on our jobs, our kids, our house, the vacations. Heck, we're even focused on, the big wedding day. And I'm personally not married, been engaged for eons and plan to stay that way. But one of the reasons for that is because I don't believe necessarily in how, as a culture, what we've created as marriage. So if I do a ceremony at some point, it's going to be a very different experience, because again, I do not believe in putting all this time, money, and energy into one big day and then watching a relationship and intimacy and connection fade, and it not be really, a relationship that adds to your life in a big way, and pushes your boundaries and helps you to evolve into that version of yourself you want to be. And so I think we're so focused on the life, we're so focused on doing things together that we're not focused on being together. And I always say we're creating a life together and not a love together. Creating a love together takes very conscious effort on how do we want to interact, feel, communicate, touch one another. Most couples are touching one another in ways they don't want to be touched and they're not enjoying, or they're not touching at all. They're reacting to one another in ways that, like, oh, I feel like annoyed around you. That's not how you want to feel. And so it's really, to me, we're failing because we're not focused on the love and the interaction together. We're focused on everything else. And at the end of the day, all of that other stuff, including your kids' success and happiness, will not make you fulfilled and happy. If that makes sense.
Yes, that totally makes sense. And I was in a conscious relationship about 2 years ago, and it was around like 2-ish years on and off. And it was so interesting to grow together on those different pieces and be like, oh, we're missing each other here. And when we found out about like the 5 love languages, it's like, oh, we really like physical touch the most. So that's why that worked for so long, but we were totally missing on words of affirmation and gift giving, and like other things were totally missing each other. And once we had that frame of mind, I could be like, I really need you to say I love you. I really need you to say I'm proud of you. I really need you to support me in these physical and verbal ways. It's like, oh, and then he was like, well, growing up, all these things happened and I liked gifts and I felt really loved and supported when someone would come home being like, oh, I thought of you during my day and got you a little candy bar. It's like, oh, little incense will like light you up. This is amazing.
Right.
So having those little things, it's like, it makes such a big difference. And to know what your partner needs and desires and how to like fill their love tank, so to speak, can really support the whole couple. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many couples also assume they know their partner.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the case in my experience. Could not be further from the truth. I cannot tell you the amount of times when a woman is talking about her experience and she's like, well, I just know what my husband wants, or I know what he's going to say, or, you know, the husband saying the same thing. They're always jumping to assumptions. But most of the time when we actually sit that couple down, not only is that not who your partner is, it's either not who they are, it's not how they want to be, or it's not happening for the reason you think that they're doing those behaviors. So I just love helping couples to keep learning and meeting their partner for the first time again and again, and stop jumping to assumptions about who their partner is and what they're going to do next and what they want, and instead be a lot more present with them, because it is insane. The couples that I've worked with from 17 years together, 10 years together, 2 years together, they don't really know each other. They have stories about each other, they have a history, but they don't really know each other. So there's such a huge opportunity for just like spark and magic to happen again.
Yes. And I love the importance that you put on like intimate communication being the title, because it's so important to communicate and to check in and to be like, this is the story I'm telling myself about this. It's like, what are you actually doing here? What's like your purpose, your intent behind this? Because it's like, this is what my old belief systems and stories are creating about what's happening right now. It's like, what is actually happening though?
Absolutely. That's a perfect example. It's so common that we're creating all kinds of stories about what's going on, what our partner, what the intention behind it. Like, oh, he was just doing that to hurt me, or because he's annoyed, or like create all these stories that are not true. And so intimate communication, my work really supports couples to learn to communicate about what's going on with them, for them, what they need, what they want. Because when we can just have conversations so that we actually both know each other and know what's actually going on, not what we think is going on, not what our insecurities are telling us is going on, we can just have such a beautiful experience.
Yes. So what were those ingredients you were talking about? What's the missing ingredient that we need to know about?
Okay, I made a couple notes because I often go on tangents and I want to get the right things to your people.
Awesome.
Okay, so the missing ingredients, specifically, I'll say it's one missing ingredient and then there's some ways so that they can do it. So the missing ingredient is overall it's communication. But I don't want to say that, because your people and whoever's listening right now, they're going to go, oh, communication, we talk all the time. We've heard it, right? We hear communication all the time. But here's the thing. Most people kind of know what communication is, but they think it's just talking, which it's not.
Right.
And so communication is the missing ingredient. But no one ever taught us how to what I call intimate communication, which is what I teach. I teach people how to communicate about intimate details of their life. So not only sexuality, but I often don't even jump into the role of sexuality, like in my 2-day event or my online program. I don't jump into sexuality right away, because there's just extra vulnerability and emotion tied to that for people. So that's like,
definitely,
that's kind of my second step. My first step is just having conversation about who we are, what's important to us, where we're struggling, and how to actually support one another versus try to save one another. Or like, you know, so often, like if a woman is struggling, this is one scenario, the roles could be reversed for man or woman. Say a woman's struggling, her man often just wants to, or partner just wants to like save her and like, I just want you to feel better. So get you out of discomfort as much as possible. Well, that doesn't necessarily help her to get through the issue that she wanted to get through, or really communicate her needs to you in that moment. And vice versa. Maybe the man or the other partner is getting more emotional, as an example, and but then the woman like can't hold space for that, or the partner. So she's like, why are you being so emotional? Like, oh, I can't handle this. Clean this up.
Yeah.
And so we see like couples just can't hold space for one another. So what I mean by that, for people who don't know that term, you can't just be with them in the intensity of emotion. Or I hold back. I don't say what I really want to say to my partner because they always get offended, or I'm worried they're going to get offended. So then we never get anywhere. It's like we start a conversation, it ends in tears, fights, or walking away, and we don't fully get where we were going to get. And so I teach this this way of communicating and interacting with one another. It's not really even just communicating, it's interacting and being together, a way of being together that helps to get out of those traps, basically, and make this way of interacting fun and easy and pleasurable for both people, even people who don't like to talk. So some people are like, I don't like to talk, I'm not a talker, my partner's not a talker. It's not about talking, it's about who you're being with your partner, how you're interacting with them, what you're doing for them. Because of course, as you can imagine, Laura, when you are listening to your partner, when you have the ability to not get triggered by what they say they need, you don't get all defensive, you're gonna get so much further, so much faster.
Yes, definitely. And
then,
then
of
you have a
course,
deeper
the
connection with each other.
Absolutely. Right. You feel reconnected again. And then the sexual conversations, which is something I'm really passionate about, the sexual struggle that women go through with their turn on, with enjoying sexual experience, with moving through trauma, as well as then how this dynamic plays out in relationships and, intimacy in relationships, sexuality in relationships. That's something I'd say my biggest motivation behind this work. But we can't even get into those conversations because of the intensity and emotion and vulnerability about them, that everyone's buttons are just getting pushed, everyone's pissed off and triggered. And so I really kind of teach this foundation so that then I kind of lead them or help to guide them into more conversations that they really need and want to be having on a regular basis, like what feels good and not good in my body.
Yes. I love that. And it can be playful. Like, I even teach this with like random women that I like just start having sexual conversations with. I'm like, there's super easy things. You can even be playful about it and be like, we're just gonna be curious and like not have the intention of orgasm, have a goal or an outcome or result, and just be like, does it feel better if I touch you here or here? Does this pressure feel better here or here? Does it feel better when I kiss you here or here? And just make it like a game. And if you want to put numbers on it, be like, from 1 to 10, what's your pleasure when I do this? And just to like fun play and be like, this is how you can like get to know each other in a very like no judgment, super exploratory, very curious, playful, adventurous way.
Yeah, I absolutely I love that example. That's one thing that I often get my couples to do, because it's especially when we're getting into the sexual conversation, because there's so much vulnerability and emotion around the topic. And if one of the partners don't have like sexual trauma, I always say that there is still sexual trauma within the relationship. And what I mean by that is, over time, whether it's you're turning down your partner, or you've had sex when you don't want to have sex, or it's not enjoyable for you, that kind of traumatizes your nervous system and your interactions together. And so it's really important to like bring like some of these really easy concepts like you were just sharing forward, because it's very vulnerable, as an example, to a lot of women just turn down their partner if we're speaking sexually. So they'll say, like, oh, I'm just not interested. I have one of, the scroll of excuses that we use. But when we learn to communicate, we can actually learn to communicate what we need. Because the truth for most women is they're going, oh, I don't want to. But if they tune in, they're actually somewhere on the scale of turn on. They're going like this because they're not a 10. That means they don't want penetration in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then we can't communicate our needs. So all we do is just shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, if we use a fun number system, which I always teach, is to go, what am I feeling right now? Okay, you're asking me for this. I feel resistant, so I'm not a 10. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like a 2 or a 3. Most people are actually not the zeros that they think they are. Sure, some days you
Mm-hmm.
might be, but I was shocked to discover in my body that I was actually walking around more at like, a 3 to 4 in terms of turn on a
Mm-hmm.
regular basis, and that if I could just learn to communicate, like, okay, I need a quick shower. I'm not a 6 or I'm not a 7 because I feel dirty and gross. So if I can
Mm-hmm.
shower and then I would love to come back. Or if we could just like
Mm-hmm.
clean up the room and turn on a couple candles. And when I'm saying this, it's like, it sounds so easy to
Mm-hmm.
use a simple number system of where I'm at and what I need. But it is deeply vulnerable and very emotional, and then tangle it all in with all your past histories. It is, I hope the people listening are going, oh, this sounds really easy, because it is when you have the right support and the right tools. When people come into my event, they're like, wow, it was so easy to communicate here. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really because of all of these simple little structures that I set up that make it feel really safe and takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the emotion out of it. Whereas when you're at home, you guys know what happens.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All the buttons being pushed, all the trigger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, what's that intimacy challenge that people can have so that they can go home with their partner and be supported in growing that more intimate and satisfying relationship right now?
So one of the biggest things people say is time. They don't have enough time. They're
Mm-hmm.
busy. They're running all over the place, and I agree. Their time is of the essence. So these are 3 different intimacy challenges. I encourage you to do all 3. Maybe you either do one a day. Maybe you do them all every day.
Mm-hmm.
But these are 3 things you can do in 5 minutes or less to
Awesome.
create more intimacy. So, number 1, this is what I call the eye gaze. So I want you to sit across from your partner, and I want you to set a timer for 1 minute or for 2 minutes. I challenge you to 2 minutes. If you can only get 1, that's a good place to start. Set
Mm-hmm.
a timer, sit across from one another. You can either, hold hands or not. If you prefer no touching, that's actually what I used to prefer in the beginning. And so that gives you, and just look at each other in the eyes. Most people want to make faces. Most people want to like squirm away and do really awkward things because they're uncomfortable. This is an example of we can't just be present and connect with the people in front of us, and that's impacting your intimacy. So I encourage you to, you can do this with anybody. You can do this with strangers. You can do this with your mom, but doing it with your partner. So set a timer for 2 minutes. That is and just notice how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay if you feel a little silly or a little stupid. Keep doing it. It's okay if you even tear up. I know for me, I almost get emotional almost every time that I do it, especially the first couple times, because it's just like it reminds you what you're missing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number 1. The second thing I want you to do is set a timer again for a 2-minute kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So some people might be like, what? 2 minutes? We don't even peck anymore. 2 minutes. Something happens around the 30-second mark, the 1 minute mark, where that awkwardness kind of goes away, and you actually get that, you just feel each other again. And so a lot of people go, well, the timer, that's a little bit awkward. The timer is so important because it sets this safety container. Especially if there's a lot of sexual intimacy resistance in your relationship, what happens is that, because a lot of people feel like they don't have control over sexual experiences. Oh, if I kiss him or if I hug him, he's just going to want more.
Mm-hmm.
And so this 2-minute container, I used to stop hugging, kissing, rubbing, touching my partner at all, because I felt like I couldn't communicate intimately about what I needed and wanted, and when it was a no or a stop. So I was constantly overrunning my boundaries. So the 2-minute timer is essential so that both of you can just give yourself so fully to that experience and be in it, knowing that there's a clear stop.
Yep.
If you stop and you're like both in agreement to like, let's keep going, awesome. But if not, you can both actually just be in the magic of it together.
Beautiful.
So that's the second one. And the third one is to actually have a conversation. So I pulled out an intimacy challenge here for you. So my challenge for you today is to tell your partner 3 things that you love about them. So
Beautiful.
one partner can go, and then you can switch and receive.
Mm-hmm.
And in this scenario, do your best just to listen to what your partner is saying versus make jokes or comments because you can't receive a compliment. Just notice, any discomfort you have with even having this type of conversation. It seems so simple and so light, but we forget to, on a daily basis, just tell the people who mean the most to us, who we do this life with, what we love about them. And so this is a practice you can do, like I said, 1 a day and rotate through. You can start your day with, like, this would be what, 5 minutes. To do all 3 would be 5 minutes of intimacy, just to start your day. And I'm telling you, I've had couples that just do the 2-minute kissing challenge, and they're just like, it blows them away as to what they've been missing out on.
Mm-hmm. And I love the share what you love about your partner, because we do take the people around us for granted more often than not, unfortunately. And being super grateful is amazing to attract more of what you desire. And sharing that with your partner literally expands everything that you love in your relationship, which is so beautiful. It's like an extra little bonus side effect is like, oh, they understand that you're really grateful in the run of the day when they did this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, I understand what they really love. And then we'll kind of subconsciously or consciously start doing more and more of those things because that's meeting your needs and desires in beautiful ways.
Yeah, and what people might not have necessarily initially picked up on is that these 3 things cover kind of a range of needs in a relationship, because there's physical needs in a relationship, there's more energetic needs in a relationship, just who we are together, kind of slowing things down with the eye gaze, the physical side of things, which is obviously the kiss, so that as well as the conversational side of things. So it's really this balanced approach, because my go-to, back in the day was always to, I loved the eye gaze because it was like at a distance, it felt safe, but I loved talking. But I wasn't interested really in like the touching or cuddling or kissing kind of activities. But my partner is very physical. And I noticed that that's where I was the most resistant. So I wanted to do intimacy this way, but where there's resistance, there's growth. And so it gives your partner who maybe wants that, who they receive love through physical touch and affection, it helps for them to be more on board with a conversation because they also know they're getting some connection physically.
Yes, that's so beautiful. I love that. And how can people connect with you after the show to get more of your intimacy challenges and connections and to go deeper into their satisfying relationships?
Awesome. Well, you can definitely hunt me down on any social media, just under Janelle Fraser, Facebook, Instagram are my 2 major platforms. My website is janellefraser.com. But more specifically, around intimate communication for relationship, they can go to janellefraser.com/intimate communication. So that's just my website /intimate communication. And that gives them a layout of my newest online program that has a pre-sale order right now for a big discount, as well as my 2-day live event that's coming up in June here in Fredericton. So these are all options available to them. And of course, if you just, want to discuss what's happening in their relationship and kind of figure out what step is best for them. This week specifically, I've actually opened up my calendar for 30-minute couples sessions for free that people are interested in my work and want to just see where and what's a fit for them, then I can guide them to the best steps. So they can just send me a message to book one of those.
Awesome. And do you want to put some of those links after the show in the comments so they can click right on those?
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome.
And just so people viewing, if you do decide to join me in the intimate communication experience, either the online and get the pre-order deal or in the 2-day live event coming up, there is a special discount for you from Laura. So whenever you're in the checkout page, just type in, there's a coupon code, and just type in Laura. Small or capitals doesn't matter, Laura, and I'll give you 15% off.
Thank you so much.
You can definitely take advantage of that.
Sounds amazing. And you guys it's local. So for all the New Brunswick people, it's Fredericton, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So live events that are actually in New Brunswick. It's so incredible. Yay. I love that so much.
Yeah, we've been doing live events for about 6 years throughout the Maritimes, and people are still like, what? Like, you're local? Where are you from? You're from here? Like, what? This is going on here? Like, yes, this work is going on here.
Yes, I love that so much. I know I was surprised, I think, end of last year, a friend of mine told me about you, and I was like, she's in Fredericton? Like, there's women in New Brunswick doing this stuff? I'm like, how did I never know that before?
Yeah, we
She's
have
like,
a
yeah,
huge
you guys.
community that we've built here in Fredericton.
That's amazing.
Specifically of women that we got started with that are just totally rocking in the healing coaching world. And yeah, so now we're moving into helping more couples as well.
Beautiful. I love that so much. So yes, you guys, I encourage you guys to go check out her links. Her name's also in the description above right now if you guys really want to just like click on her and find out more about her posts and all the awesome things that she's doing in the world. And I encourage you guys to keep making the Love and Light show a weekly part of your healing journey. I'm sending you guys all so much love. Bye.